Well, today I'm in the studio of Flora Bowley, who lives here in Portland and is not only a visual artist, as you can see by this incredible work behind me, but also is a visionary and a teacher. She designs for different companies. She's amazing, and I'm really wanting to have this conversation about how your journey has unfolded as you've learned how to receive more and more, both as an artist, both financially, of course, is part of my conversation. That's what we're really dealing with here, is the money. How do we deal with the money? But it's rare to find an artist that's really found a way to really do her work and hold on to her integrity around that work, which you do really well, and you just told me that that's really important to you.
Yeah.
At the same time that you're also licensing your work and letting it be out there. What would you say is part of that story? What was your story about receiving, especially financially, at the beginning of your artistry process?
Yeah, it's such a journey. Like you said, I think I actually was born a little entrepreneur. Like, I would try to sell anything I could when I was little. Mm-hmm. Like, I would make little bracelets out of seaweed and like think that people would buy them for a quarter. You know what I mean? So I sort of had that gene built in. I always thought it was just fun. I thought like that idea of being like a shopkeeper or like making and selling was like fun. So I realize now that that is not true for a lot of people, like that there's actually a block there, and I didn't have that block. So I think that has really helped me quite a bit along the way. So when I started selling my paintings, I would just sell them anywhere I could, like coffee shops or art walks, or I would have shows in my own house and like make invitations and like I thought it was like fun, and I didn't want to keep the art. For me, it's so much about the process of it. So for me, it was just like I've never really had a problem selling the work. It's like once it's done, I'd rather just have it.
It's like it's not precious.
It's not precious to me.
Hold on to
it. Once in a while I keep a piece, but for the most part they're just out the door. But through those years of making a living just selling art, it was challenging. It's like relying on your income from original sales of art is just like, as you know, it's like not an easy road. So but I was so dedicated to it. It was like my thing. Like I knew that I was a painter from the time I was like 18. I mean, I knew I was an artist from the time I was a kid. And when I turned 18, I took my first painting class in college. It was just like, this is my thing. I know that this is what I have to do. I had a little show in a coffee shop, sold a couple pieces, and the light bulb went off. And that was like, I could make a living.
Oh my gosh.
Because before that, I didn't think you could make a living as an artist. I thought I had to be a graphic designer or a teacher, which is funny, kind of full circle there.
Right.
But, so I kind of got early on that I could do it, I thought I could do it. And then it was just a matter of, perseverance and dedication and following my passion. But I was just making enough, always just making enough, and like lots of stress around, the bills every month and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And the big shift that really happened for me was I kind of got to a place of feeling like I wasn't in service enough in my life. Like that making paintings alone in my studio and then selling them through galleries, which was the point I was at, was not like my deepest soul work. Like I knew the painting part was important, but I was like, there's something missing. Like I don't feel like I'm making a difference.
Interesting. How long ago was that?
That was 4 years ago.
4 years ago. Okay, so
4 years ago.
Tell us what changed.
So the moment that it really started to crystallize, I remember I was having breakfast with Anna Hatakaken, who's the owner of Papaya, who I just started licensing my work with them. And I was telling her this. I was like, I think my dream job is actually not my dream job, and I'm like at this like crisis, and I don't know what to do. And I really had no idea. Like I was in that place where you're just like, I have no idea what the next thing is. This is what I've been working for 18 years, And she said, well, what about teaching? And I was like, oh.
What a concept.
What a concept. Like I'd never even considered it before. And so, long story short, she wrote a blog post that said, here's our new artist we're working with. She might start teaching workshops. And I had like an inbox full of people wanting to take the workshops.
Wow.
That didn't exist yet. And along with that came an invitation to teach at Squam art workshops out in New Hampshire. Yeah. I'd never even heard of it. I had no idea this whole art workshop thing even existed. I was like living under my own little rock. And I said yes. I said yes, I'll try it. And I flew to New Hampshire and I in that first weekend, I taught 60 women. I was doing one-day workshops.
60 women?
I did 3 classes of 20.
Oh my goodness.
Which now my minimum is like 4 days. But
right, because there's no way to get into the process.
Yeah, and now I've learned some things. But I taught all these women, and like it was kind of the buzz of Squam that year, because we were painting big and we were painting all free and colorful, and people were just like, what are they doing? And it was literally 2 weeks after that course that I got asked to write the book. So, the rest is kind of history. Like, it's just been like one thing after the next. I've flown all around the world teaching workshops for the past 3 years. I was approached to collaborate on an online course with Beth Nichols, who does Do What You Love series. And the e-course has really been like the biggest blessing, because I'm able to teach, every time hundreds of people sign up, and from all over the world.
Hundreds of people.
Hundreds of people. I mean, the first time we launched it, we had 600 people sign up. And it was just like, oh, okay, there's...
That's a little bit easier.
There's something there.
As a cash flow than...
Exactly.
Each piece I make.
Oh my God, yeah. So, I mean, there was the cash flow aspect, which was just like, to me, like, I had never experienced anything like that before. So it was very much like, wow, like game changer for my life. But then just the service piece, and just being able to reach all these people, and really seeing that my process, it's a transformational process. It's not just like learning how to paint pretty pictures. It's almost like it's like a personal development course, personal transformation, like disguised in painting. Because painting's fun.
Painting's really just the vehicle.
It's totally just the vehicle.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the testimonials just are pretty mind-blowing from that. And so I do have that, like, I'm actually making a difference in the way, and it feels like it's all my soul work now. And so all the pieces came together. It's like, I guess I had to paint for 18 years to be able to develop this process and to do my own personal growth that came with it, than to be able to teach it.
And that's true, right? So we have to have enough wisdom and experience to be that teacher. So when you see somebody who's 22 or 24, and remembering ourselves at that age, you're doing what you can do at that stage.
Yeah.
But you can't necessarily be the wise woman yet. You're not ready.
Yeah.
But there are wise women at 22.
Sure.
I mean, they're just wise in different ways.
Yeah.
But it's not all of it. So I want you to share with us when you had this e-course and it was just this phenomenal success financially. And now you have this like huge balance in your checking account, I'm assuming. All of a sudden you're just like, what happened? What was that like? What did you feel?
Well, I actually right away I was like, I'm gonna build a house for myself.
Oh.
Because I have, like we talked about, I've lived with 4 or 5 people my whole life, just to be able to pay, to keep the bills down. And I've lived in tents, I've lived in vans, I've lived in warehouses. Like, I've kind of like never really had my own space. And now that I'm doing this work that is just bigger and bigger and with more and more people, the thing that I was like knowing that I needed was like a sanctuary to come home to. And so I took all of that money that I mean, literally every cent of the money I made in that first year, and I built myself a little house that's in the backyard of my bigger house where all my roommates live. So I didn't really have a balance for a while there. I pretty much funneled it all into that, but it was, it was exactly what I needed to do with it.
Did anything come up around feeling like I don't deserve this, or that worthiness that sometimes can really hit us in the face when something big changes? Did you have any of that feeling?
I think I had a little bit of that, but not in a really big way, because I know that I've been working so hard for so long, and like it was a little bit of more of a finally. Yeah, finally.
Like, thank God.
And like really getting that the work I have to do in the world is pretty big. Like I've just kind of gotten those downloads where I'm like, well, I'm kind of here to do something here. And so knowing that I was doing that finally,
right,
and that worrying about money was not part of that story. Like, to do this work, I couldn't have that stress still happening. Like, been there, done that, totally understand what that is, and I have compassion for that because I've lived that way.
Right.
But no, it was totally like, here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go. Now I can take care of myself so that I can serve others, which to me is like the crux of the whole thing. So.
And that's where it all changed, was when you made that decision. When you came back to yourself and said, wow, some piece is not being fulfilled here.
Yeah, the wanting to serve. I think that's pretty interesting that's when the abundance flowed in, was when I moved into a place of service.
Yeah, which is powerful.
Yeah.
I like the idea that what you did with that money was you did something to nurture yourself.
Yeah.
In order to be able to keep serving.
Exactly.
Because if you didn't do that, you'd probably be very depleted. Because
Exactly.
it is exhausting.
I was getting depleted.
It is exhausting.
Yeah.
I mean, 2, 3, 5 days, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You're holding the energy for a group of people that you're teaching.
Especially in other parts of the world.
Yeah, and then everything else is unfamiliar and you're putting all those pieces together.
A lot.
So what has changed in terms of how you actually handle money?
Well, that's very much like a present process for me. Like now that I built the house and now your money's like still coming, I'm like, okay, now I actually need to. So when I met you, I was like, oh, I probably need you. I've really started to educate myself more on how to handle money. I've never had money to have to know how to handle it before.
Exactly.
So, thankfully I have a great CPA.
I was going to say, as long as you got that in place.
I've got a great CPA. I've always been like organized enough, it's like I've always had my accounts separate and my credit cards separate. And like
all some good basics.
Yeah, I mean I've been in business for myself for a really long time. So I'm pretty much my whole adult life. I've never really worked for other people. So I've kind of got like the basics all dialed. Yeah. But as far as like investing, that's a whole
retirement.
I'm like, oh wow, I could even invest. I could invest.
So something other than my business.
Yes.
Or my home.
Exactly. Or just the basics, you know. So yeah, I'm learning. I'm in the process of that right now, and I feel like I've got a lot more to learn.
You get tools. Yeah. You're recognizing that there's tools out there.
Yes, absolutely. I came from really, thank you to my parents. They're very grounded around money, and like I didn't come from like really wild money stories, that I hear from other people. Like I came from like Midwestern, middle class, worked at the YMCA. You know what I mean? Like that's my
just
story.
Regular people.
Just like people who like valued education and like travel and like we got like one Christmas present. Because we would go to Europe for a family vacation at some point in the year. Like do you know what I mean? So I feel like my sort of priorities were set up in a good way from the beginning in that way, where it's like not about like accumulating stuff. It's about quality of life and experiences and that kind of stuff.
And yet you really made some clear choices early on that were that art's most important to me. Being in this artistic process, which meant I'm going to compromise some other things, like I'm willing to live in a van or house sit for months or whatever it is. But in a way, it almost is like that's what connected you.
Yeah, it's like I wasn't
you don't know it.
Burdened by those things. It was part of my 20s. It was part of my like, I'm a bohemian artist and this is what my life looks like, and I'm okay with that because I would rather live in a van and be able to travel on my free will and not be burdened by the mortgages and like all that kind of stuff. I've also never been married and I don't have kids. I think that's important to say.
It is, because that's a different level of responsibility.
Totally different lifestyle, there. Yeah. So I've made those choices along the way as well.
So when you started teaching, how did you determine what the value of your classes was? Because that's another part of receiving is really learning how to ask. It's like one thing to price your paintings, right? And then you price the replication of your paintings, which is another issue I'm sure you've had to deal with. But how did you do that?
When I first started teaching, I was being hired by art workshops, and they would give me like a per day per student kind of rate, which is like really standard. And so I was just getting what they gave me and feeling like great. And then as time went on, I realized that I had a following and that I actually didn't need to teach for other people anymore, that I could just announce something on my website and it would actually fill like that day, which has kind of been my experience, which is like
that's amazing.
Super grateful for.
Like these are big classes. Rachel told me that.
Oh my gosh,
your Bali class will open up and you'll fill.
Now we take applications because I know I'm like really yes, that's true, because now
it's not like they're cheap or anything, right?
They're not. And I think when I started teaching, I did keep the prices as like really quite low. I'm always like in that, like I don't want to overprice and I want them to be accessible, all that kind of stuff.
And you want to be in service, but
want to be service more. Yeah, so it's always this fine line. I'm not like, let's make as much money as we can. Like that's never my, sort of motivation.
It's not at the front of it, right?
It's not. But what we've just done with some of the courses that we've repeated, like I'll be going to Mexico for the 3rd time in a row this coming January, and we've just raised the price a little bit every year. Now I have one change that I bring an assistant with me everywhere.
Well,
I
you
must have my buddy assistant person.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and so
you can't do that without an assistant.
Yeah. No, so I always bring someone, and I want to pass on the abundance to them and pay them well, and so that's all gets built into the price. And then I just think just with anything, as you kind of become more and more known, you can you need to charge it's all about, for me, what feels really good.
Exactly.
I've had the experience where I've taught and given it my all, because I always give it my all, and felt really depleted and felt like I didn't make enough money.
Right, that wasn't worth it.
That wasn't worth what I'm walking away with. And so I've just learned, and now I'm pretty clear on that. And I teach less also, so I'm only teaching like a handful of workshops a year versus 15 workshops a year or something like I was doing. Right. And so I have to charge more because I don't teach as much. So yeah, it's all just sort of a process.
Yeah, to be at the place where you can take applications.
I know.
For a workshop in Bali is like, wow, talk about abundance and receiving and being in a place of drawing it in.
Yeah.
And you teach in San Miguel, and I used to live in San Miguel.
Oh, cool.
And then I was like, you're teaching at that hotel, I love that hotel.
Yeah.
It's a great place.
It's great.
But, so you're setting your life as you go. It's like, it sounds to me like you've learned how to stretch your capacity to receive, but at the same time you're setting a parameter around it so that it's not taking too much out of you.
Yeah, I'm really aware of how much I need to take care of myself in order to show up for people fully. I mean, that's really what I preach in the workshops is like self-love, self-care. Like we can't create intuitively and with bravery if we're not fully loved and taken care of. And so when I go to yoga or when I ride my bike and do the things I do, I'm like, this is part of my job actually. I'm like, actually this is part of
that.
I think of it that way. I think that I have to get massages. I have to go to yoga. I have to eat well. I have to sleep well because it's actually my job. My job is very much like my whole, it's all wrapped up in my life, You
can't come to the cannabis and do a good job if you're not taking care of yourself. That's what you're saying.
Yes, and that people, I have a blog and people are really interested in my life, and I feel like I'm living in a way that is in relationship to what I'm teaching, and it's a very holistic, sort of healthy thing, and so it all has to be, I don't want to talk one thing and be acting in a different way.
Yeah, you have to model it.
Yeah.
You have to model it. Where do you see yourself going in terms of, so part of the conversation that I'm having right now is about grace, bringing grace into our capacity to receive, and part of what I heard was when you're in service, that opens you up to grace, really.
Yeah.
I think and so. That you opened up to really do what your soul's work was, which was to take what you do natively, painting natively. It's like it's in you, as well as being entrepreneurial is in you.
Yeah.
But it's offering that.
Yes.
Not keeping it just for yourself.
Yes.
Being unafraid in a sense to share your techniques, share your vision, share your magic, and trust that it can just ripple out.
Absolutely.
And a lot of artists are afraid that if you share that, you'll see people repeating your style out there. Yeah. Which I'm sure happens.
It does.
It happens it happens whether you're Laurel Birch and everybody in Bali's replicating it. Yeah. Right? You license it and then all of a sudden you see it everywhere. Yeah. It happens whether you're teaching it or not, right? Yeah. That's just gonna happen. But it's almost like we have to be big enough to let that happen.
Yeah, and I'm always evolving in my style. Like I never want to just do one thing over and over. I'd be so bored. So I'm always like, okay, what can I do new? And so in that way, it's like, sure, I can teach all day long, and I'm always next step ahead.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I think, generosity for me is one of my core values, and I just think life is so much more fun and interesting when you come from that place. Yes. And so I never think twice about it all, about sharing it.
And I think we get confused as women in particular, but artists as well, around generosity without honoring and taking care of ourselves financially.
Yeah.
You know,
True.
it's so easy to get stuck in this
True.
place of, oh, I just have to keep giving it away, it'll eventually come back. It's like, no, maybe not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, how do you give and honor yourself?
Yeah.
How do you give and ask for what you're worth?
Exactly. That's such a
It's
balance.
tricky.
Yeah.
But it's doable.
Yeah.
And like you said, I mean, I think it's very important for people to understand that you can get to this place of success, you know, whatever your definition of success is. But when I ask people that question, I ask it in my financial planning questionnaire. I'm like, what's your definition of success? Because it's so different. And some people say it's being happy with what I am, where I am, with what I have.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so what does that take? You know, how do you get to be happy where you are?
Yeah.
But it's that level of understanding internally what success looks like still has to translate into some real tangible movement around finances.
Absolutely.
For people, especially those of us that are creatively minded who don't necessarily want to look at the ledger or plan for the future because the moment is good.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Moment's good, but I work with people right now that scare the crap out of me because they are 60 or 65 and they don't have anything.
Yeah.
You know?
That's real.
So how do we start to help move this creative female genius that I think is out there? It's so wonderful. Into this balance between the spirited doing your soul work stuff and being kick-ass businesswomen.
Right. Yeah. I think there's just a lot around like, well, gosh, it's so deep and layered, but I mean, we could talk for hours about it, but I think, you know, it comes down to like educating yourself. You know, I meet people and they're like, how are you doing? And I'm just like, do you know about social media? Do you know about blogging? Do you know about online courses? Do you know about licensing? I'm like, there's a ton of way to make, I mean, there's nothing I love more than having a conversation with someone around like, how can we make your passion into a paycheck? Because I get it, like that comes back to my like it's fun like to be a shopkeeper thing.
Yes.
And I'm like, we can do it, but so many people just don't even like they haven't even considered the possibilities around all the ways to do it. And just being able to put yourself out there. I mean, I have put myself out there and I continue to do it every single day, you know, in a way that is kind of, you know, fearless. And like, this is what I do, and here I am, and if you like it, great, and if you don't, fine. You know, I think there's a lot of fear of doing that, so that's a good one to get over.
Yeah, and it's like, so what? Like, so what if you fall down?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, really?
It's important to, actually. It's like in the painting process, it's important for it to be ugly and chaotic at some point. It's like,
and to
that's
trust that somehow you'll move out of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. I had that experience when I was doing a painting workshop in India, and we got one piece of paper for a week.
Oh, wow.
I was like terrified. I was like, one piece of paper, I'm used to doing a painting in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And that wasn't an option.
Right.
And so I had to keep looking deeper into the image and what was coming out of it. So it's very powerful.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so many more things we can talk about. I want to.
It goes on and on.
But for now, I just really want to thank you for being here with me.
Thank you.
And hopefully inspiring people to keep looking outside of the box, outside of the story that we have about who we are and what we can be as creatives. And not to get intimidated. I think it's so easy to get intimidated by what other people are creating. And instead to say, what's my way?
Yeah.
You know, where am I most lined up with my truth? And how can I bring that into the world and make a living doing it?
Yeah.
But it's about educating yourself and creating a community of people that have a similar vision and can help each other. So.
And realizing all the parts of yourself can actually turn into an offering, you know? It's like, I never knew that my self-growth stuff that I was obsessed with for so many years would actually be what I end up teaching. You know, just to really look at your life and go, wow, how could all of this actually inform whatever it is I choose to offer?
And it does. I mean, it's like I was a visual artist and then a psychotherapist and now a financial planner. They all feed, they're all part of what I do now.
So no time is wasted.
No time is wasted.
Our whole life story is
great.
important.
Our whole life story is important. Take that. All right. Well, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. It was fun. Thanks.